Petworking is presented by Maya Strategy Group, a leading market research and strategy consulting firm, helping clients in the pet care and animal health industries navigate strategic challenges for almost 2 decades.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petworking. I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy Group, and here with a very exciting episode for you today, a return guest, which we always love to have. But from one of my favorite episodes last year, Nicole Patrick, founder and CEO of Rescue Spot, a platform I remain convinced is really going to change the state of shelter pet adoptions here in the United States and hopefully the world. When I first learned about Rescue Spot, Daisy Chavez of Pet Insurance Review put me in touch with Nicole and said that we should connect. And I was really taken by the platform because I had a childhood friend who at one time had set out to achieve a similar goal. When I saw what Nicole had done, I was like, this is the fulfillment of my childhood friend's vision. And it was really cool to see it brought to life. And over the last year, Nicole, I know you've been working on a lot of updates to the back-end software on the platform. But for those who might have missed the first episode, and I would certainly encourage any of you who did to go back and watch it, because I'm biased, but I think it's really good. Nicole, do you want to give us a brief overview of what Rescue Spot is, and talk to us a little bit about what you've been up to in the last year? I know we've spoken not on the show since then, but for the rest of our audience who may be checking in with you for the first time in a year or so, how have things been going, and give us a recap of what Rescue Spot is and what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy to be back, and it's good to speak with you again. So I'll first tell you a little bit about Rescue Spot, and then we can go into a little bit about our updates and why we decided to make these updates, what we found about the shelter world and how it's rapidly changing. So Rescue Spot is a pet adoption platform that caters to both pet adopters and rescue organizations while connecting the two. So pet adopters are able to search and match with pets nationwide with Rescue Spot, and they fill out a one-time universal application that they can use to instantly apply to adopt or foster any pet from any rescue on the platform. We are the first fostering website out there that you can actually see fosterable pets in your area, and not only see them, but also apply to foster them. You are able to instant message with rescues and shelters. You can see the status of your application. So let's say you've applied to 7 different pets, you can see who's opened your application. If someone else adopts a pet that you were interested in, then you're notified right away. So you're able to continue on your adoption journey and look for a new pet. Once you are approved for a pet, you're able to sign all of the adoption contracts. You can purchase pet insurance with us. In the very near future, you'll be able to get pet food suggestions based on your specific pet's medical records. And then you can sign all the adoption contracts and download all those adoption contracts and all the medical records to share with your pet. And then always just have that information on your pet in one place. You can also see volunteer opportunities in your area. So it's really a one-stop shop for pet adopters. Traditionally, it would take a pet adopter probably over maybe 7 to 10 hours in today's environment to search for pets, then apply for pets on each pet's different rescue websites, fill out all the different applications that there are, and then weeks of waiting to hear back from rescues or shelters. With Rescue Spot, it takes under 15 minutes to register, fill out your application, search through hundreds of thousands of adoptable pets and apply for those pets. And then once you are approved, it takes about 5 minutes to fill out the adoption contracts and download all of your information. And then for rescues and shelters get a website style profile that they're able to put up all their adoptable pets, upcoming events, news, fundraising. They're able to fundraise through their platform, and they're also able to show any volunteer opportunities that they have. And then on the more adoption side, on the back end for rescues and shelters, it's total shelter management software. So rescues and shelters are able to look at all their applications that they receive from us, because traditionally rescues can receive for a highly adoptable golden retriever puppy, they can receive hundreds of applications within a few hours of listing that pet. So they're able to filter through their applications based on their own rescues requirements. So let's say that they don't want to see anyone who doesn't spay or neuter. They have a rule that they don't adopt people who don't believe in spaying or neutering, or maybe they only want to see people for a specific pet that have a fence backyard. Maybe it's a husky that likes to jump over fences. So they're able to just instantly filter through their applications and find the best possible fit for their rescue extremely quickly, basically instantly. They are able to, like I said, fundraise, approve adopters, find fosters. It's really difficult for rescues and shelters currently to find fosters because there isn't really anywhere that you can go on. You can't really, on Pet Finder, there aren't those options. On Adopt a Pet, there aren't those options. So you really rely on social media or word of mouth to find fosters. So with Rescue Spot, you're able to go and find those fosters. We see nowadays that so many shelters are moving to foster-based models because pets, when they're in foster homes, are able to really be comfortable. They're able to open up. When pets are in shelters, they're often in a crate or a cage. There's often a lot of barking or loud noises. And so pets then tend to shut down, and you can't really learn that pet's true personality. Whereas in a foster home, they're able to feel comfortable. You're able to really observe what type of pet they are. And in turn, you're able to know who the best adopter would be for that pet. You can say this dog is really shy. They're not going to be great with children, or this pet is amazing with kids. You have to find a home for this pet with kids, or other pets maybe. So through a foster-based model, it's easier to find that. And with Rescue Spot, we are really the first platform out there that's able to help rescues find fosters and to help fosters find rescues in their area. Rescues and shelters are also, of course, able to complete all of the paperwork through their side, manage all of their financials, and really do everything from A to Z in one space instantly at one time.
A lot to unpack there.
It's a lot in a quick.
I feel yeah, no, I know you said you've been doing some pitches, and you've clearly gotten the A to Z of what Rescue Spot can do down into a 5 or so minute pitch. But I think what you've described there is so comprehensive because as we talked about last year, this is intensely personal for you. You had volunteered in a shelter. You experienced the difficulties of adopting. You know it from both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize when it comes to adopting a dog or a cat is that this is a system that is largely funded on charitable donation and volunteer time. And because you're working with limited resources and people's spare time by and large, you're not going to get a best in class solution. And that's why I think what you've developed here is so brilliant, not only because you're universalizing the adoption process for prospective adopters and prospective pet parents, making it easier for them, but you're not monetizing it to the shelters. You're giving that software to the shelters for free. And I think that's huge because it gives them a sophisticated tool that was designed with purpose, that was well thought out. I know you're coming up on another round of software updates, but a big part of why people get so frustrated in trying to adopt a pet is they may never hear back on their application, or know what was wrong with their application, or even that their application was received. And that's not necessarily because the shelters they're applying to are poorly managed or anything like that. But if you're, like you said, if you're getting hundreds of applications for a highly adoptable dog or cat, and you're dealing with a volunteer staff going through paper-based applications or email-based applications or anything like that, and it's not an efficient, sophisticated system that allows you to sort and filter through, you might only make it through the first 10 applications in that stack. And then I think, it leads people to, like you said, people look at it, they're like, hey, I'm trying to do the right thing here. I'm trying to do good. I'm trying to give a pet a home. Um, I want a dog. Um, there are lots of animals out there in shelters that need homes, and yet I'm finding it difficult to do this. And this is probably a tangent that we could get off onto, and then I'll try to keep it so we don't go too far down this rabbit hole. But I think it contributes to this perception that there is a shortage of pets in the country, and you hear people talk about their difficulties adopting, or that it's hard to get a dog or a cat, when the reality, and we discussed this in the episode that we did with Hills and the state of shelter pet adoption report. Dr. Karen Shinoy, that Hills chief veterinary officer, and Stephanie Filer from Shelter Animals Count came on, and shelters are at capacity. Like there is no shortage of adoptable pets here in the country. And I was at Pet Connect in December, and there was a very what turned into a fairly volatile, spirited panel that ended up being a audience-wide discussion around whether there actually is a shortage of pets in the country. And there were people espousing the view that there's only this many pets in shelters, and if we look at the replacement rate of pets, and you make those arguments, but I think it comes down to more, there's a shortage of, like you said, highly adoptable pets, right? Or maybe a concentration of pets in certain geographic areas. I'm sure there's areas of the country where the shelters are not at capacity, but in a lot of parts of this country, they are. And, we look at it, in particular, I think, the adoption report pointed out, like, the length of stays for large dogs has doubled since 2019. So it's really hard for a 70-pound lab like Peony to find a home these days, because there's restrictions on breed sizes. There's certain breed restrictions. So there's lots of pets out there that are struggling to find a home. And I think what you're doing that is so cool is you're making it possible for people to search across the entire country, right? And and there may be an opportunity to transport that pet that's in Los Angeles to Vermont if there's somebody that wants a certain age, breed, size, color. I mean, picking a pet is very personal, and I'm not going to sit here and disparage people for wanting a certain breed um, or anything like that. You want that fits with your family, and breed preferences and size preferences play into it just as much as whether they're good with kids, or whether they're younger or older. But I think there's a fit for most pets out there. And I think where people get so frustrated is it's hard to create those matches. And it's hard to create those matches because there is no database, and because up until Rescue Spot, the onus has really been put on the adopter to do a lot of the legwork and reapply and refill out applications. And what you've developed is just making it so much more simple, both for the adopter and for the shelters. And so, by taking the work out of the process and bringing technology to an industry, I don't want to call it an industry, adopting pets is an industry, but to a process that historically hasn't had it because it's lacked funding, it's lacked investment, and it's relied on volunteer time. I really think it could be pretty game changing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to hear that this was a topic at Pet Connect, because in the last episode, we touched on it a little bit, but one of the reasons why I created Rescue Spot was that I had started as a volunteer, and then eventually I worked for various rescues throughout Manhattan and in Connecticut. Then eventually I started my own rescue. And most of those were in Manhattan, where, it is very competitive to adopt a pet. And one of the reasons that I created Rescue Spot was because so many people would complain to me about how they wanted to adopt a pet, but they weren't able to to, and so they went to a pet store instead. And that was at this point over 8 or 9 years ago that I was having those complaints constantly. And so now I think that we have a few factors, a few external factors at play that lead to this misconception in some areas that, there aren't enough adoptable pets, so you don't need to adopt one. It's okay to buy a pet. It's, all these different things. And I think that it's because of course, there isn't a centralized platform really out there like Rescue Spot where you're able to go onto and see pets in your area and easily apply to, easily find out the status. So that's, the number one thing. B is that with social media nowadays, it really has become the number one way for many rescues and shelters to advertise their pets. And with that, like anything in social media, the people that are great marketers are going to win. So the rescues and shelters that really know how to market their pets, that know how to use social media, are able to get their pets out there. And then what you have is, rescues and shelters. Some of the rescues that I see have millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers. So you're looking at these shelters and rescues that are putting up these adorable puppies that then get 20,000 likes. And then you've got all those people going to try and adopt those pets that are getting now 20,000 people, sending it to everyone that they know. And you've got sort of a gold rush of people going to look for these pets that they see on social media, not really understand. And then, of course, they don't hear back, or that pet gets adopted in 2 seconds. And they don't really understand that there are thousands of rescues and shelters that don't really have a say, that aren't able to get their voices heard. And those are the rescues and shelters that have these pets that are staying for 2 or 3 times X the time that they had stayed in the past, or, in Mississippi, where they have 3 times the kill rate as the national average for these high kill shelters, where these pets, many of them are highly adoptable pets. They just aren't getting seen. They're not getting the exposure that they need to get. That's why with Rescue Spot, one of the big things that we do, we do not charge rescues or shelters for using our platform. And we really work with them to get their voices heard. We work with the community aspect just as much as we work with the tech and software aspect. We work with lots of different influencers that have millions of followers, and each week they show different Rescue Spot adoptable pets for our rescues and shelters. We also do commercials that are totally free for the rescues and shelters on various streaming platforms. So they're able to, if they're chosen for that month, put up footage of their adoptable pets with a QR code that leads to their Rescue Spot page, where people can not only apply to adopt or foster their pets, but if they're in a different area, they can donate to those pets. So it's really important for us to work on the community aspect, because it's not fair that if a rescue doesn't have the time that maybe an Upper East Side Manhattan rescue has, and the money and funding to, maybe hire a social media person, it's not fair that those pets aren't getting the same exposure just because they don't have that kind of funding. And I think the third factor is that as more and more cities and states are banning the sale of cats and dogs in pet stores, you've got, again, a gold mine rush of people rushing these shelters and rescues. The rescues and shelters not having the infrastructure to keep up with the demand. And again, it's a pipeline, it's a clogged pipeline and a bottleneck of people wanting to adopt pets, now not being able to go into pet stores or sort of backyard breeders anymore. Breeders that there are having stricter restrictions put on them. And so there's a smaller supply of these highly adoptable pets, which then is turning, and also as pet adoption gets more popular, I do think that, of course, is fueling this fire as well, with people wanting to adopt. So you've got now everyone that wants a pet going to adopt a pet, and the times just haven't caught up yet. Technology hasn't caught up yet. And that's what we're really working very hard to do. I do think that, so we launched about 2 years ago, and we've been putting out more and more in sort of a beta, and now our next platform update that's coming out is really like the full Rescue Spot. And during this past year and a half, 2 years, one of the biggest things that we tried to do was look at what is working for the adopters in one category and what is working for the rescues and shelters in another category, and how can we fill both of their needs without compromising either person's experience. So like we don't want to have to start charging rescues or shelters. That's just not going to happen. So how can we make things better for the adopters and for the rescues without having to compromise the shelters experience and what the shelters are able to do? And same thing with adopters. One of the things that, we've noticed and that we're now doing a big overhaul on is that for rescues and shelters, it's a big deal for them to move to a new platform and to move to a new software if they don't really have the infrastructure, if they don't have the volunteers to do that. And so because of that, we've now added in new software that basically plugs in with other rescue websites and shelter management softwares where we're able to pull the data from rescues. We now list, hundreds of thousands, or we will be at the knock on wood at the end of the month of February. We now will be listing hundreds of thousands of adoptable pets instead of just pets and shelters that have registered with Rescue Spot in the past. So you'll be able to go on to Rescue Spot and see all of the pets that are on all of the other rescue websites that are out there. And adopters are able to apply for those pets and send their application to those rescues, even if those rescues haven't yet registered with Rescue Spot. Which is a huge deal because now these rescues are able to get a whole new group of adopters, even if they haven't had the time or haven't heard about Rescue Spot. When those rescues do receive an application from us, they are able to just click a little link. They'll be then brought to a Rescue Spot registration page. They can register with us, and every single person that has applied through Rescue Spot for one of their pets will all be auto-populated in there. So they won't have missed anybody. They'll be able to instantly approve anyone. Or let's say that maybe they don't want to register for Rescue Spot yet, and they just want to say, hey, I don't want to switch for whatever reason, but I do want to get in contact with that adopter. We are not gatekeeping anything. They'll be able to see their information of the adopters. They'll be able to, just from the PDF that we're sending them, reach out to them and do their own thing, take it from there. Our goal is not to take anything out of the hands of rescuers. Our goal is to make it as simple as possible for pets to get adopted into the right homes and not be returned. So we're not gatekeeping anything from the rescues and shelters. And at the same time, for adopters, we are making it simple for them to apply for as many pets as they want to, even if they haven't yet been registered with Rescue Spot. With these big commercials that we do, we found that we had a huge influx of adopters going on the QR codes, looking at, the Rescue Spot platform after they saw the commercial. But because we were just in beta, there weren't that many rescues in many areas that were yet registered. So we saw people coming on, registering, not seeing pets in their area to apply for, and then leaving the platform. Now with this new update, they will be able to see every single pet in their area and apply for them instantly. And then, if the rescue wants to join Rescue Spot, great. If not, they'll still be connected with a pet. We'll still be doing our mission of connecting adopters and rescues easily.
It's almost sort of like a web crawling plugin, right? Where you're pulling this information off of their sites, you're relisting it, but it serves as lead gen for you, but it also, like you said, it makes it more possible for prospective adopters to find their fit in terms of a correct the right pet for them, so to speak. No, because ultimately, you touched on this with, the focus on fostering, right? I think we look at the state of shelter pet adoption report, and I think it said, the top reasons for surrender were behavior issues at 24%, housing restrictions 23%, and then financial difficulties another 19%. And a lot of those things might not manifest themselves if a pet's in a shelter environment as opposed to a foster environment. You might not see some behavior issues until they get into the home. Housing restrictions, I guess you can be a little bit more upfront in terms of understand, that's more on the shelter and application vetting processing side of things, but you're making it easy, to do that with the software, and financial difficulties as well. Understanding, okay, does this pet have any special needs that might require additional medical care down the road? Is this family well equipped, to take on the expense of having a dog or a cat? And we want to increase the number of adoptions, but you said it, it's not just increasing the number of adoptions, making sure all pets find homes. It's making sure they find the right homes, because there's probably nothing more traumatic to an adopted pet than being adopted and then resurrendered. And,
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see that. And, I think it's one of those things. I think adoption, in my view, sits sort of at the nexus of the pet care ecosystem, right? And that can be everything. You mentioned, you have partnerships with pet insurance. I know you talked about you have a partnership with Odie. You can buy pet insurance on the Rescue Spot site. Probably the best time to buy pet insurance is when you're adopting a pet, because they don't really have a medical record. It's you're getting them. Nobody knows, a lot about their past, but it's a clean slate. For you sign them up, then they're going to be covered for conditions for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
You can bring, I don't know if you're considering exploring partnerships with trainers, but we talk about what keeps pets in homes. People who have anxiety about adoptions, you know, and they're considering relinquishing their pet. I think that was one of the most striking things to me that the Hills report, is that 94% of owners who were considering surrendering a pet kept it after receiving support in the form of training or other resources to help them acclimate to that new phase of life of pet ownership. And it's one of those things like food, right? Whatever, the food that you're feeding in the shelter is probably, that's a huge opportunity for nutrition manufacturers. Most pet parents, they'll receive the recommendation of, okay, this is what they've been fed in the shelter. This is what they were fed at the breeder, and they'll stick with that choice. So that's another huge opportunity, right there. I think you could go on and on, but you're serving as sort of that marketplace platform. And I think it's great because you're able to monetize it through these partnerships, through, giving pet insurance companies a platform to sell their products, nutrition manufacturers, trainers, groomers, all these things that you're going to need, embarking on pet ownership. And by and large, you're not, obviously there's adoption fees that adopters have to pay. And they're going, the adopters are going to buy these products and services for their dogs, but it's not getting passed on to the shelters, and it's not getting unduly passed on to the adopters. So, I think it's a really, really cool system.
Exactly. And that's why, that's one of the big reasons why with this new update, we're not charging adopters to do this. Even if you're just applying through Rescue Spot for a pet that's not yet registered on Rescue Spot, we're not charging you if you adopt the pet. There's nothing to do financially with us passing through the cost to the adopter, because there are so many opportunities down the road to recoup that for us through partnerships, that to put a financial strain on the adopter or ever put a financial strain on a rescue organization just doesn't make sense when a pet is a lifelong commitment and there are tons of opportunities to be involved with them down the road. And that's right now we're in this incredible opportunity of having AI as well, that we can sort of weave into all of this in a really positive way for pet owners and for pets health and for pets behaviorism. And that's something that that's our next sort of third phase of Rescue Spot, is to really invest heavily in AI, to integrate that in so that we're able to find the best possible, maybe dog trainer in someone's area, or maybe they don't want to have an actual dog trainer in person, but they want to, one moment, But they want to just work with, dog training on barking. So we can come up with the best possible barking training methods for a pet, knowing that this pet's history is that they were in a shelter before, that they were perhaps abused, and using all that information to come up with the best possible plans for a pet. Same thing as I mentioned with food. That's our first step, is coming up with, or we're already sort of working on it, but implementing an AI integration for Rescue Spot that's for food. So after a pet comes out of a shelter or from a rescue, taking the information that we know on the pet food that they're currently eating, and then integrating their medical history, all the information that we have, and coming up with a feeding plan for them of the best, foods that are out there for them, and how we can integrate that into their diet without making them sick. Because honestly, I've had people try and return pets to me in the past just because they were getting an upset stomach from switching new food for their pet, that they didn't understand that that was just a common thing. You can't just give your dog that just came from a shelter a whole new bowl of food from, maybe a very rich, hearty food that's going to upset their stomach. And I've had people call me in the middle of the night, I just can't take this anymore. So these are all things that are tools that need to be put in the hands of adopters. And I think that being a trusted partner for a new adopter, for a new pet parent, is really important. And so if we're able to make the adoption process simple for them and gain their trust that way, then we're now able to fill out all these new chapters of life for them. It's great that we have this new AI tool that we're able to simplify for things for them even more, find the best people in their area, find the best training plans for them, find the best foods for them, and stay with them throughout the entirety of the pet's life. A, so that the pet has the best possible health and life, but B, also that the pet doesn't get returned again, because the return rate on pets in many areas is just unacceptable. And so if we're able to do something about it, then we're going to.
Working in collaboration with anyone on the AI, or is this all self-developed? Like when you're talking about, nutrition recommendation algorithms, I know Royal Canin has one, Hills has one. Is this something that you guys are developing that's agnostic, or are you working in partnership with
So
any of the
So
manufacturers out
right
there?
now we're working on it ourselves with the of just digesting the information that we have on the pets and rescues. Our hope now at this stage is to bring in a partner with the idea of that we don't. I think an important thing for us is to make sure that we're always bringing the best thing to the table for the best quality and option to the table for the adopter, and not just saying, because we're working with this company, you should be using their food. So we are very careful about that. But the next step would be bringing on a partner and plugging in with their databases and with their suggestions.
Now, I mean, the other that jumps to my mind when I hear AI in the pet space is that, I mean, just the ability to synthesize and aggregate and sort through copious amounts of data. It's unlike anything we've seen before.
Yeah.
I haven't put it out there yet from Pet Connect, but there was a panel there on AI, and one of the most striking insights I got from that was, I think, when you think about the amount of data that these models are ingesting, and just in terms of like speech training, they're trained on, I forget the exact figure, but I want to say it was something, like 750 million hours or something, but like, over 100 times the amount of speech that like a given human would hear in their lifetime. And they're doing it in days.
Yeah.
It's amazing the data processing and ingestion and synthesis and capabilities that these AI models have. And when, I think about it in the context of Rescue Spot and your access to all the different adoptions, the breed, the age, who that, where that pet went, where they're geographically located, the demographics of the parents that are adopting them. I don't know how deep your access to that data goes, but like I mean, it's an incredibly valuable database in and of itself. And if they, then you're taking AI and putting it on top of that, um, I think that the possibilities and potential are limitless. It's really, really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have very, very in-depth information about the adopters because they are filling out this universal application where we really get to know the meat and potatoes of not only their behavior patterns, but also just their socioeconomic backgrounds, all of these different things that we have, which you don't really have anywhere else because all the rescues and shelters are getting, some applications from here, some applications from there, but with us, it's all just in one place.
No, I mean, that's brilliant. That's amazing. I think we're gonna. I feel like we're gonna be having this conversation, another year down the line, and from my perspective, the sky's the limit for where you guys can go. I'm very excited to see the new software roll out. And I think again. This has really resonated with me since I first heard about it, and every time we chat, I get a little bit more excited. I feel like Peony is the dog in my house right now, and hopefully will be for years to come. But at some point, I'll probably be creating a Rescue Spot account. Um, have to limit myself because if I went on,
I know.
find a reason to adopt all of them.
It's very difficult from my standpoint to go on there and not apply for all of them.
Oh yeah, it's just at Global Pet last year. Maybe it was Super Zoo. It was Global Pet or Super Zoo last year. Hills had some dogs at their booth from local shelters, and there was this very cute white German Shepherd Husky mix, and I was sitting there. I was like, "Oh, I can't. No, I don't know how Peony was going to react, but
Yeah.
it's one of those problems that like you never know. Like I know people who, as their dogs get older, they get a younger dog so that
Yeah.
they're never without a dog. And Peony just turned 10, and I'm really hopeful she'll get to 20. But it's it is one of those things that as you have an older dog, those things have to cross your mind. But I think what you're doing is so cool because it's making it so easy for people, and I'm really excited to see it continue.
Thank you. Did you freeze for a sec? Oh, there you are. Sorry, you froze for a sec. Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm really excited for everyone to see the new updates, and I'm super excited just for hopefully, knock on wood, for more pets to be adopted quicker and to stay in the homes that they find.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it'll be great. I mean, how many pets do you have on the platform, or how many shelters do you have on the platform right now?
Right now, we have about 100 on the platform from the beta, and I think we'll have it's like 13,000, which is a big chunk with the new updates.
That's from not necessarily registered with Rescue Spot, but what you're featuring.
Pulling their data. So you as an adopter will have access, unrestricted access, to many, many rescues and shelters now in your area, not just in the areas that we've been throwing these, that we've been hosting these beta, beta trials in.
It's really cool. I'm so looking forward to seeing. I think to me it's a no-brainer for them to register with you once they start getting applications.
Thank
you. So are there competing shelter management platforms out there?
Well, it's interesting because there are platforms like Shelter Love or Pet Stablished where you're able to, on the back end, like for rescue organizations, you're able to collect data from adopters. You're able to, get all of that information, collect applications, collect foster applications, but they only integrate into a rescue or shelter's personal website. So, Shelter Love doesn't have somewhere that you can go onto and search through all of the rescues and shelters that they work with. So you, as Peter, who wants to adopt a pet, let's say that you're looking to adopt a pet in your area in Vermont, you could go to 7 different websites of 7 different rescues and shelters that each use Pet Established or Shelter Love, but you would still have to fill out 7 different applications. You
Individual
have,
application. Yeah.
a background. You wouldn't have a dashboard where you can see all of your applications and all of those sorts of things. And then there are
So
websites and
they're operating like purely on the B2B side of things, and they
exactly,
haven't integrated the B2C component at all. Whereas
exactly.
you're sort of serving as like an eBay type platform
Yeah.
where you're serving as the central hub, and the shelters are your sellers, so to speak,
Yeah.
and then you have buyers that can come and you facilitate, or like a dealer.com, because
Yeah.
you're doing, some basic like website design for them, and they can have a rescue spot branded
Yeah.
website as well. Yeah.
Exactly. It's
I
almost
mean,
like if you put together Pet Finder and Shelter Love and created a master website throughout the two of them. That's the closest to what exists, similar to what we do.
yeah. Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to see the new rollout later this month. End of February for anyone who missed it, right? Do you have a
Yes. The
firm date?
the basic rollouts it'll start rolling out end of February, and then in the next, month and a half, it should be fully out. You'll be able to see, the whole kit and kabang.
Cool. Well, we'll have to schedule a maybe a follow up episode 6 months or so from now, and we can see
Definitely.
how it's working out, how many shelters have jumped on the bandwagon. Uh,
Absolutely.
my Valentine's decorations up for my kids' Valentine's party anymore, and the we'll be able to see in 6 months how far have you know how much market share have you been able to take from 100 rescues now to of the 13,000 that you're going to be scraping. I'll be really intrigued to see the conversion percentage, and
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely encourage anyone who is looking for a pet in the near future, jump on Rescue Spot, go out, find your perfect match. Um, Again, I think it's so cool that you can search on literally a nationwide basis, and we'll be talking in the future with Delta, and their veterinarian was at Pet Connect, and she and I had some great conversations about the potential to get airlines involved in the transport
Yeah.
of shelter animals to different parts of the country. And we featured the Casco cages at Modern Animal. I don't know how real it is, but they teased an idea that they might be able to equip planes with Casco cages in the cargo hold to make the flight more comfortable.
Yeah.
So you'd have a climate light, temperature controlled enclosure for your pet in the hold of the plane. So I think there's some huge developments, but if you can't find that pet across the country and match it up with the person that wants to adopt it, none of it really matters. So, and we don't want to be exposing dogs and cats to needless transportation in the cargo
Yeah.
um, because while it may be safe, I'm sure it's not the most enjoyable experience for
Yeah.
them. So cool. Well, lots of exciting stuff to come. Nicole Patrick, founder and CEO of Rescue Spot, everyone. Really excited to see what's coming down the pipe, and would definitely encourage you all to check out the website, particularly if you're looking to adopt.
Adopt or foster. It's a great, even fostering is just a great way to dip your toe into the pet adoption, into the pet owning space. And also just so many people come to me and they say, hey, I really want to adopt a pet. I really want to have a pet, but I just do not have the time. If you go to one of these rescues or shelters and say, I can be an interim foster for you when you can't find someone that's able to take long term, or if one of your fosters goes away on vacation, there's tons of rescues that are desperate to find people, even if they can only foster for a week or so, or volunteers. So there's lots of opportunities on Rescue Spot to get involved with pets.
Awesome. Well, everyone, go and check it out. Really cool platform, lots of cool opportunities. We'll definitely be checking in with Nicole again later this year. I love having repeat guests on the podcast, and it's always fun to check in and see how things are going. So, Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Everyone, I'm Peter Kenseth, Vice President and Partner at Maya Strategy, and signing off on another episode of Petworking. But we'll see you all again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.